Welcome back to the Stablecoin Podcast. I'm your host, Maday, Head of Payments at the Algorand Foundation. And we have Ramy Soliman, President of GMO Trust, and we're both co-founders of the Stablecoin Partners. Today, we're joined by real rock stars. We have Aishwary, who is the Global Head of Payments for Polygon Labs, and then Jamal Raees, Head of US Payments, also from Polygon Labs. We'll be digging into Polygon's payments roadmap, their recent upgrade with Rio, how stablecoins are becoming invisible infrastructure of payouts, commerce, and cross-border flows. But before we get started, a quick disclaimer. The views expressed here are those of the hosts and the guests and do not reflect their organizations. This episode is for information purposes only and not to be taken as legal, financial, or investment advice. Ramy, Aishwary, Jamal, welcome to the show. Let's get started.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
So Polygon is super exciting. You guys are doing some amazing stuff when it comes to Web3 in general, but really you guys have always been at the forefront of stablecoin usage, and especially, with the India background, etc. But I think for us to kind of get a sense of what you guys are doing specifically, it'd be kind of good to understand how you guys got started in this space. Like Aishwary, I know you have a very different starting point than Jamal does, right? And so maybe you can kind of go first.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I started so today probably is my 4th year anniversary as well at Polygon. So I've been
wow, congratulations.
Thank you. So
wait, is it today?
Yeah, it is today. So I literally joined
wow. Congrats.
15th of September, 2021. So it's technically my 4th anniversary. I think most of my work at Polygon for payments actually comes in from the problem statement that I actually kind of felt while working at American Express. The biggest challenge I used to see, we used to manage treasury, cross-border payments, hedging multiple currencies, moving money across the world for 132 entities. And the biggest thing that we always had as a problem was there were so many markets. Every market closes at a different time. The Swift ISO standards which are there, they make a lot of technologically advanced players moot because of the intermediaries being not that good in the technology side. So from that perspective, I think I always saw that problem, and blockchain was one of the things that at that point of time, we were looking at to solve at American Express. This is 2018, and there we started experimenting with some of the blockchains. Figured out figured out blockchains would be the solution, not necessarily the solution that we were using at that point of time. But I think that is where the inspiration came in from. And I think at that time, nobody was talking about payments back in 2018, 19. I think the only player in the market was Ripple. They were okay, you should move money using XRP. They launched a bunch of products. They built out products for a lot of companies at that point of time. But yeah, I think majorly Ethereum was more about how we are kind of creating smart contracts, how all those things, how all those assets can move, not just payments. So 2021, when I joined, it was the first full-time DeFi hire, trying to go out and take the DeFi summit. So that was majorly in 2021. We have 4 people try to work end to end to bring Polygon to 10 billion TVL on DeFi. I don't think we had anyone else who was competing at that point in the L2 space at all. So that was a good summer back from. So we were the first in DeFi summer, but we already knew because payments is gonna be big. We always kind of kept our focus in the payments. It's just that we doubled down earlier this year when we started expanding the team. So earlier there were 2 people who were doing payments. One was me and one was Manu, who was doing the LATAM payments. But now we have a big suite of payments US. Jamal, he has been crushing it there as well. All the big companies, all the big names. He's everyone knows Jamal. He's like a rock star there. So from that perspective, now we expanded our team. Now we are a 12 people, only payments team, payments and RWA team. So that's how big we've become, only in payments and RWA. And now, I think yesterday you would have seen the announcement of John also joining us as the chief product officer from Stripe. So that's how we are completing the team to kind of go behind payments all in.
That's huge. That's huge. For John to join you guys at this time, especially with the launch of Tempo, is that's really key. And we'll jump into that a lot more from as we kind of go on here. So Jamal, Aishwary is 100% right. Like, you are an absolute rock star. Everybody knows you. Anytime we're at shows, anytime we're at an event, like, you know so many people in the space, especially given your deep background in traditional payments and then now in the digital asset space. Like, can you maybe kind of give us a little bit more view into how you got started and like how you ended up here, man, like in this amazing position at Polygon?
So I will say, if anything, everyone knows our crew. Like, I feel like us for the whatever, the four musketeers, whatever we want to call it. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I think we just have a lot of friends in the space, and I think it's a testament to like a bunch of people being passionate about what we do and the mission that we're on, which I think is amazing. And not to mention, like, it's super fun to hang out with all of us, like when we all go to like exotic countries and whatever. But no, yeah, excited to kind of like work on the Polygon side. I think things are cooking up here. As Aish mentioned, I've been like in and around this space for a while, so I started my career in crypto at a company called BitPay, joined in 2016 to kind of lead their business teams. And back then, I think BitPay was just kind of like launching and finding that product market fit, trying to figure out like how to really build like a payments product in the crypto space. So I worked with them for about 4 years, helped them kind of launch their initial suite of products as well as launching like a retail app. In that retail app, we got like over 35 licenses, including the eighth bit license ever. We launched the first Visa crypto card ever in history in 2017. We launched the first MasterCard, a crypto debit card, 2 years later in 2019. We worked with some of the largest names in the space to help like do the most like vanilla crypto payment acceptance use cases like AT&T, Porsche, Gucci, Microsoft, whatever. Um, it was there that I kind of realized that, I mean, I kind of knew this thesis before, which is why I joined BitPay, but it was there I kind of realized that there is a massive, massive value to creating an open, democratic financial system that can be accessed by anywhere across the world. Like, we all have families internationally. I think that's why us four are always kind of like, we're drawn to each other. We kind of understand that at a global level, there are pain points that we don't see in the States or in the Middle East or even in any developing area, right? But go back home to India, go back home to Pakistan, like, it is difficult. It is terrible to send money. And when they have money, the volatility is out of control. The fees are ridiculous. And with that, it just kind of feels like you're stomping on the ground of the people who need financial services the most, which is why I was just so drawn to this mission in the first place. There is just so much value to be had by creating a robust global financial ecosystem that can rewrite the history of what we're doing on the financial side. So anyway, I was always kind of electrified by that thesis. I think we all kind of are, which is why we're all doing the payments use case and the payments vertical, which we think is one of the most like wholesome verticals in the crypto space. But yeah, after that, I was like locked in. I wanted to go get a little bit more of a big name brand on my resume. So after BitPay, I left and I went to Square for a little bit, where I led debit card partnerships at Cash App and did a little bit of work on their crypto ecosystem product, which isn't like super complex, just more like buying, selling Bitcoin.
Uh-huh.
Was there for a little bit over a year, and then a crypto boom really started happening, mainly because I joined Polygon and the price of Matic probably just went up because of that.
That is what it is. If you look at the correlation is definitely there. Aish goes to Polygon, Matic shoots. Yeah.
There you go. Every sick day that I takes, there you go. Like,
How do they keep track of that? It's amazing what the market knows. Twitter,
it's
crypto
our
Twitter is
HR
nuts
system.
about this.
Our
Yeah.
HR system is directly connected to Coinbase.
To Twitter. Like, so
Yeah,
anytime he puts a day off, like, Twitter's like, oh,
that's right.
sell.
Yeah. Sell. There you go.
Yeah.
All the KOLs.
Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, I joined Wire during like a very crypto boom, just because I felt like, the Ethereum landscape was exploding. Smart contracts were creating new financial use cases that were powerful and like, were worthy of true financial services. And it kind of just felt like now's the time to kind of jump in full and go like deep and go towards more of a building role. So I joined the team at Wire, which is kind of one of the first fiat on ramps ever. It started in 2012, just like a general crypto as a payments like platform. They worked with some of the largest players, like, obviously MetaMask. They were the first fiat on ramp integrated into MetaMask. They were also working with the federal government to do like aid disbursements in USDC, collect, Bitcoin for taxes, a bunch of crazy stuff. Was there for about 4 years before we ended up going through kind of a wild ride and selling the business. Um, and then after that, I joined pre-revenue at Bridge. I was their first business hire. I
OG. Bridge OG
helped them
for
kind
sure.
of Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fun. Helped them build out a lot of their like early banking relationships and a lot of the product structure, and then go to market to their first 20 customers. And then we raised like a Series A with Sequoia, started a deal that we may have heard of, and then I kind of like took some time to chill out and try to, relax a little bit. After that, I had a very short stint as the head of stablecoins at a principal level Visa and MasterCard acquirer called Unlimit. They have like a ton of licenses and global payment methods, and they just saw the value of like getting deeper into stablecoins. So I led all their stablecoin related initiatives. And then Ice just called me until I joined Polygon, which was only like one or two calls, but yeah, it was
It was either me
it
going
was
and working with Jamal or Jamal coming and working with me. No other choice.
That was the options. Yeah.
yeah,
Fair enough.
yeah,
It's very
Completely agree.
binary. Just
yeah.
join Polygon. I think that was the call. It was
Only option.
three words.
He actually said,
just join
I think
Polygon.
Ash said, which day do you want to start? It's not even like anything. He's like, what day do you want to start on, like a Friday, take it easy, or maybe start on a Monday? Like, that was really the conversation.
Go
Really
for
that
Exactly.
it. The Monday, we're doing a Monday. We're going all in.
Yeah, he's got to
No, I've
balance
been here for
the.
about I've been here about 5 months. Never been happier. It's amazing. I love working with the team. I love like cooking up cool stuff. Payments is obviously hot. The space is reacting to what we've been building, and I'm pretty excited to see what we can cook up. You guys included. We're all doing cool stuff.
Completely agree. I mean, for those of us in payments and stablecoins, like, we couldn't think of a better time in history, really, right? And the tailwinds are there. The tailwinds are there for sure. How does Polygon, who has such a vast footprint across the globe, and with Jamal, with yourself, and Aishwary, from your global point of view, how do you see like the markets changing, especially with the Genius Act coming out? Like, I'll give you my perspective, like, not to lead the witness, right? But like, my perspective is like, everybody was kind of waiting for the US market to do something. They were like, oh my God, like everything is happening. Vara was doing something. ADGM was doing something. You had the MAS out of Singapore doing stuff. And so all these companies were going there. And then all of a sudden the US came out. And then now you have like MiCA, who was one of the first, saying, oh, we should probably augment the way we do stuff to kind of match maybe what the Genius Act is putting out there. Is that kind of how you guys kind of view it? Maybe Aishwarya from a global perspective on your side, and then Jamal, definitely after that from the US perspective. But what are your thoughts, Aish?
Yeah, I think globally that is exactly what is happening. So, I think we've been consulting a couple of governments as well on like how effectively like they should like form their policy towards stable coins, and like I think there's a lot more openness as compared to where we were like before, like actually like the Genius Act came in, and a lot of governments are actually kind of now taking it as a priority. So like for example, Hong Kong was nowhere doing anything in crypto, and suddenly they opened up and they said, let's make the policy, and their policy is almost there. Like they made it live. Now they're issuing the licenses. Similarly, like I think Middle East, like a lot of banks are thinking about having their own stable coins and like pushing it into production and like seeing where they can kind of go out and bring more businesses. A lot of like smaller countries as well. Like we've seen we've been talking to a lot of those financial regulators and financial bodies, and they have been like, okay, this is something where we should kind of go into it. I think Japan opened up. Korea, right, almost daily is talking about some banks kind of launching a pilot with the stable coins. Europe was like anyways kind of going out and doing that with MiCA, but even that effectively, like we saw like a lot of financial institutions and banks also in Europe who effectively have now started kind of coming in and saying that, okay, we want to do a stable coin. How can we kind of become like bigger, and all those conversations where the use case would come in from. So it's not just basically one single place. It is actually now happening across from the global perspective. And literally, I think all the forward-thinking nations today, like they are kind of thinking on how we can get into the crypto world, how we can start using stable coins as a rails for payments, and a lot more and not just payments. I think the entire ecosystem. So it's not like you can go out and I always think from a treasury manager perspective, like you need to move money, but along with moving money, you need to find ways where you can invest. So that's where like you're seeing all these real world assets coming to the picture, and then like tokenized stocks also, like if someone wants to go out and trade in, and then also like you have debit cards, credit cards, which effectively are getting into the market. So an entire ecosystem, like outside a bank, but an entire ecosystem that is getting coming in, and like all these regulators now trying to understand how they can make like their jurisdictions more kind of um, friendly to more people in crypto as compared to like I think why are you doing crypto, which was like 1 year, 2 years back.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree. Jamal, what are your thoughts sitting here in the US?
I mean, I'll give a little bit of a global answer too, but I think a lot of this like global wave has kind of been driven by the US. In my opinion, obviously there's a ton of stuff that's contributed to this new wave, but my opinion, it was like kind of three things that happened in quick succession that led to this kind of like what I'm starting to call like the stablecoin wars or whatever. This just like heat that we're seeing right now.
Yeah.
Number one, I think that there was over the last, like, let's say couple years, there's been an increasing standard of quick digital fast payments, right? So I think like UPI in India set an amazing example. Pix in Brazil, SEPA has created a pretty exciting system. And like in the US, I feel like, Luther and I are exposed to like pretty old and pretty archaic systems. Like, I think we understand why they are the way they are, but ultimately, like, I'd say the US is not at the top of the game when it comes to payments, like especially on the banking side. So I think you see internationally this kind of like standard of fast, quick, instant payments, and that's creating this kind of like there is no like slow payment anymore. There is no like 1 day settlement or whatever. Like that's just like precedent has been removed. So that's number one. Number two, I think the regulatory landscape has obviously changed dramatically, right? I think it started with MiCA a couple years ago that said that like, oh, you can come out with a crypto framework and you're not going to see every scammer in the world come and like rob you or whatever. Because I think every regulator was afraid, like, we don't understand it. If we regulate it wrong, we're going to get all these like scammers that will run free or all these like illegal actors running free. And I think MiCA came out, put a good framework in place, showed the world that like you can do this healthily, you can do this really well. And that created the first kind of precedent for other governments to start coming out with their own frameworks. And I think that really, really kicked off, let's say in the last like 8 months or so, maybe this year. Where you saw the Genius Act come out, you saw a ton of new regulation get proposed, you saw Singapore come out with more stablecoin specific regulation, you saw Hong Kong come out with like
Yeah.
stablecoin backing infrastructure. So it's not just like, I think like MiCA started it, but this like wave of like a global framework is really starting to come together, which is amazing because stablecoins are incredibly global and they need to have a global framework for them to be healthily adopted and utilized in the right ways. So I think that like created like this foundation of safety and soundness that allowed not only big enterprises but also just individuals to feel more comfortable touching it, doing things with it, whatever, etc. Number three is the interest rate environment. So I think the interest rate environment has obviously helped tremendously. It made stablecoin issuing very lucrative. And like, is it going to last? Like, maybe, I don't know. I obviously think interest rates will come down at some point in time, but they're here for a little bit. And in this little bit, stablecoin issuers like Tether and Circle are minting money. And I think everyone just started realizing that because obviously, naturally, they want to be transparent. So they're transparent about how much money they're earning. And then they're like, wait, we didn't realize that like we wanted to share this much money. But like, I think everyone was just looking at how much Tether. I mean, Tether's looking at 13 billion in revenue this year.
Yeah.
I think they have less than 70 people, which
Yep.
is wild.
It's one of the most profitable
Fastest
companies ever. Yeah.
of all time.
Yep.
Of all time. Hyperliquid has the highest amount of revenue per employee, $115 million in revenue per employee, which is
Ridiculous.
absolutely bonkers, right?
Yeah.
So like, anyway, I think that like, I just think that the lucrativity of stablecoins, lucrativity of like healthy volume and good stuff within crypto became high. And with that, tons of stablecoins started getting into space. Tons of enterprises were like, how are we not paying attention to this? And I think that like the real catalyst or the spark that kicked it all off was like the Bridge Stripe acquisition. And it's Stripe basically coming out to the world and saying like, we are going all in. And then everyone's like, oh, Stripe's going all in. They're the largest fintech in the world. Like, we also need to go all in. We also need to figure out what we're doing. And everyone starts having a strategy. And then starts talking to every major bank and every major crypto company, every major traditional company. And then, yeah, like we all know this, every company in the world will have a stablecoin stack at some point. They'll have to support stablecoins, whether they do it deeply, whether they just touch it. It was like, like when cloud first came out, they're like, the banks will never adopt cloud. Like, every company's a cloud company now. Like, it's just a matter of time.
100%. No, you're spot on.
Yeah.
Okay, so sticking on this point of like stablecoins, right? And I, if you look at the market as a whole, and Ramy, I'd like to get your thoughts on this as a stablecoin issuer, right? So we're starting to see a ton more stablecoins come out, right? Like everybody's launching their own stablecoins. Some I'm like, I don't understand the idea behind this, but I get like, there's treasury management, etc., that potentially has a lot of value. But if you look at all these different stablecoins, I mean, USDC and USDT are still like the behemoths in the space. Like they're massive, and even like on Polygon, right? You guys have had like significant growth in the amount of USDC that you're processing from a volume perspective. How do you guys view like the launch of additional stablecoins? Number one, number two, and let's kind of like delve into like USAT, right, from Tether, the latest stablecoin from them, that they launched, like, and what is kind of like the thinking around another Tether-based stablecoin, right? So like that's kind of like, let's talk about that. What is the need for these additional stablecoins by these various entities? Is it purely, like you said, Jamal, is it purely based on let's just make some revenue from the interest rates? Is there more to it than just that? And then we can talk about like, the additional Tether stablecoin. So maybe Ramy, we can start with you, man. I think you're perfect for this question because you are a stablecoin issuer yourself.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and I've been watching it closely. And actually, to the previous points, yeah, I can certainly echo Jamal's sort of enthusiasm. I'm sat in Riyadh at the moment at Money 2020, and yeah, there's banks. I just saw Caroline Pham on a panel earlier on. So CFTC, the head of the CBUAE was there, and guys from Saudi. And Saudi is a pretty conservative country, but they are starting to look at this stuff, and it's on everyone's mind. So I feel like we're definitely right product, right time, right engagement with the right level of institution. So it's starting to happen. But yeah, to answer sort of the elephant in the room question that you talked about, which is, are we going to get a proliferation of stable coins that are going to come in? Yeah, I think we are. So, but I think there's going to be sort of behind the scenes stable coins and there's going to be in front stable coins. And I think this is the distinction that we're going to have. I think many institutions, corporate treasury purposes or banks may have a stable coin, but it may not be a customer facing stable coin. People might not even realize they're interacting with a stable coin. It might be for other purposes. So I think you're going to have those. Then you're going to have the, stable coins like MZero or MetaMask, or these guys that are sort of crypto focused, or in MZero's case, it's going to be the aggregation of the smaller distribution networks. Because one of the important things we talked about, Tether is the most profitable company in the world because it doesn't pay anything out in terms of yield back to its customers. So it's earning the NIM. So, but we know from all the other popular stable coins and, the hyperliquid proposals that were there on the Discord in the last couple of weeks were quite telling, really, to be honest, because it shows the extent to which people are willing to give away 95% or 100%. The proposal that won in the end was 100% of all of its revenue to the community. So, it's lucrative. But it's lucrative if you're able to keep it. If you have to give or you have to buy your distribution by giving away 50, 60, 70, 90%, so 50% in Circle's case, up to, say, 95 to 100% to be part of the hyperliquid, then it's not that profitable, actually. So I actually think that we're going to get stablecoin wars where a lot will fail because the basic business model, the yield is not in your control. You're not the central bank at the end of the day. You're not the Fed. So, and the rate curve is going the other way. It's going down, not up. So you've got diminishing returns in a more competitive environment, and it's becoming much, much more difficult to get traction and your distribution. That's why, you've seen the move now where issuers that have got some momentum are actually buying bits of the stack, other bits of revenue accretion that can happen that are not happening just from holding the stablecoin. That's I think is the more nuanced approach. That's what's happening now, and you can see examples of that with, Circle doing ARC, and you can see other stablecoins going down the stack, buying the stack to have control of the revenue stream of the ecosystem. So I think you're going to see that. To your point around Tether in the States, yeah, this is a power move. Just like John joining Stripe, with Jamal, that's a power move. But I think a power move by Tether, because Tether historically by the financial world has always been looked at, well, that deals with the crypto guys. That's the crypto ecosystem. That's dealing with crypto. People want to do a Bitcoin, or when you get into the exchanges, or you're in LATAM or Africa and you're unbanked, use Tether. Of course you do. That's the way to do it. But this is a massive statement of intent saying, no, we're actually going into financial services now, and we're going to attack the same ecosystem and the same audience that Circle's going after, and Ripple, and the big players are going after this. So I think this is fascinating now, and I think it's going to be very difficult now, actually, because they're fungible. I think the USAT and the USDT are going to be interoperable. So they've got the liquidity, they've got the distribution, they've got a massive amount of firepower with all the profit that they've got. So they can buy, marketing to get traction. Sure. Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what the big guys do next. But it's Stablecoin Wars are heating up. So I'm fascinated to hear Aishwarya and Jamal's take on this.
I think it's just started. This is just starting. Like we will see probably like 5,000 new USD stablecoins going out in the market, rather than just like this is the place where, because effectively the biggest thing is money historically, if you look at it, has been neutral. Like there has been no color on money. Right now we're in a phase where we are coloring the money, and nobody likes to like go out and use someone else's color. So everyone would want to have their own colors. And hence that is something that we will see in the next 1 to 2 years. Like everyone will go out and try to launch a stablecoin. A small gaming ecosystem would be like, why should I go out and like have USDT when I can go out and issue my own stablecoin? While like a small fintech who is kind of going out and moving money, since they cannot create credit, they will have their own money moving across. And that is where the problem will begin. Because now you have 5,000 different types of USD, not just one, but 5,000 different types of them. And I think, but we are like still like, I think that will continue to happen because everyone is looking at what Tether and Circle have done. But the reason why they're still kind of at the top is because they have that kind of a distribution. And that is true not just for stablecoins, even for blockchains. Like a lot of blockchains will come into the power or like into production, and they'll be like, oh, we will be doing this, we will be doing that. But if you look at the user, they're already drained out. Like nobody wants to migrate to a new chain until unless like you are an LP and managing someone else's liquidity, and you're being paid extra tokens to kind of go out and use that, like just deploy funds there. So like, I think from that perspective, like this is again like that would be the future of these stable coins. They would build like that way, but then there would be some either like they will stay longer enough to kind of sustain themselves, and like otherwise like out of these 5,000, 4,900 will die, and then there'll be someone who is like neutral who will be like taking up all the shares. So and that is like historic. Like this is something where like you need to kind of understand like that everyone wants to kind of capture that flow. So that's another reason why they all want to get into this entire flow. But apart from that, I think there's nothing else that is kind of like pushing people to kind of issue like different new USD stablecoins. Like there is not a new USD stablecoin that would come in and that would kind of give more value to the people than what currently like some of the new stablecoins are. But like, yeah, like to answer your question, will there be more? 100%. So yeah, actually, like the way I feel about it is like there will be like hundreds and hundreds of stable coins that are going to be there. They will all be created, but like I think that is where everyone would go. Like everyone will kind of try to color money according to them and say my money is superior than yours because we do XYZ things. And like effectively it will all come down to a place where it will further fragment the ecosystem, and then like there would be a lot of consolidation. I think the good thing about us like is we already know that this is a problem, and we've already started building a solution for that in Polygon. So effectively tomorrow, if there are 200 stable coins or 2,000, it does not matter, because effectively the way we are kind of thinking of solving this enables any stable coin to get actually come in, go out as per user preference, and like you don't get that fragmentation. But yeah, this is something which we will see in the this year, next year as well.
That totally makes sense. So one of the things that I think is, I would say for me, it's concerning. I'll lead with the concerning aspect of this, right? Like when you see bespoke chains being launched, and Jamal and I were talking about this just the other day. So when you see bespoke chains launched, my concern is that it just leads to more, fragmented ecosystems, right? And so now you have fragmented liquidity, each exchange has to now go adopt this. And you guys are with Polygon public chain. I'm with Algorand public chain. not that we're biased towards public chains, but I think public chains have something to offer that these bespoke chains are just going to like divert from this decentralization narrative, which is why we were all here, right? Like, how do you guys feel about that aspect of it?
I definitely think that, yeah, I definitely think that a lot of people have lost sight of the decentralization thesis, which is important. And I think that that's a key part of why we're all here and a key part of like what's going to make this solution successful. However, I will say that it's going to be really hard to compete with a chain, an ecosystem, a stablecoin, even at that point in time, that is purpose built for exactly your purpose, right? So if there is a chain out there that has built all the perfect gaming infrastructure that makes it really easy to build a game, launch a game, operate a game, the chain level architecture is designed for that. The products and the services that are built on that chain are designed for that. It becomes very difficult for someone to look at like Ethereum and say that that's going to be a better home for me. Obviously, the liquidity and the distribution is one part, but I think that's a temporary issue, right? I think the analogy I'll give you is like in the US, like Luther, you probably have this on your phone. Like you have Robinhood, you
Mm-hmm.
have
Yep.
Venmo, you have Cash App, you have probably like two or three other ones, MoneyGram maybe,
Sure.
self-custodial, non-custodial wallet.
That's how they
So
work.
like, yeah. So you have all these different apps. These are all siloed ecosystems technically, but you
Yeah.
don't feel that. You don't see that. Like a digital dollar in Venmo is by fact a different digital dollar than the dollar in your Bank of America account. But you don't see them as different because there is seamless interoperability between them. You view the dollar in Venmo just as good as a dollar in your bank account. Why? Because that dollar has a massive amount of utility. Within a couple clicks, you could transfer it at a fraction of the cost. So I think what I'm alluding to is there will be fragmentation and it will be painful for a little bit, but that fragmentation will lead to incredibly specialized products that expand the use case, expand the ability to grow and adopt new customers. And then you'll just see a massive slew of interoperability solutions that make that seamless, right? Like again, Venmo doesn't feel bad to me because two buttons and it's in my bank account, or two buttons from my bank account and now I have money in Venmo, or I go spend that at the local store with a Venmo card, or I go send it to Luther for something. I don't know, whatever, right? That
Whatever. Yeah.
interoperability. We should do that more often.
We should. We
Anyway,
totally
that
should.
that interoperability is what makes me feel like there is no fragmentation, there is no segmentation, even though there is, right? So I think a couple of things are going to happen. Who knows what's going to happen in the space? But my opinion is that every chain will verticalize. I think we at Polygons have kind of already acknowledged this, and we are taking a look at our data and we're seeing what we are good at and what we are bad at, and we are kind of making strategic decisions about what we're bad at. We're making very intensive decisions about what we're good at. And I think we found that like payments and RWA seems to be kind of the sweet spot for Polygon. DeFi, NFTs, gaming, all important, but just like not where we're going to invest our time, build products, or try to attract developers, or do crazy stuff or whatever. It's always going to be an open ecosystem, so they'll always be able to come. But like we are going to build a chain purpose built for RWA and payments. Stablecoins will have the same effect, right? Each stablecoin, Ramy actually brought up a really, really good way of thinking about it. I've never heard that before. I thought it was really good. There are front stablecoins and there are back stablecoins. I actually think that's like a really good way to think about it. Like USDC, USDT are always going to be front stablecoins. They're like USDC is the product, right? USDT is the product. Whereas like, Stripe getting in the space, or like, MoneyGram will eventually do more with crypto, or Fortnite will start doing more with crypto, and they don't want like liquidity. They don't want a solution that works outside of Fortnite. They worked on a very, very killer app ecosystem and they want to keep all the money in that. But at the same time, they don't want to bring in an external currency from an external company that no one knows about and give free branding or give free yield to them,
Uh-huh.
right? So I think that there is going to be stablecoin specialization either from a use case, vertical perspective, or an ecosystem perspective. And that will be healthy and fine as long as what I'm seeing is like kind of the next wave of solutions will come out. Like, let's be honest, like how many bridge competitors launched this year and how many more will probably come in the next 12 months? There's going to be a dozen of them. Feels exactly like when all the fiat on-ramps were being launched a couple of years ago. You guys probably remember that. There was like
Yeah.
one, two, and then there's suddenly 90 fiat on-ramps, right? So I think that's happening with Bridge right now, with stablecoin ramps, stablecoin interoperability infrastructure, which is great. Leads to good competition, good pricing, good, saturation in the space, which I think is healthy. But the next wave, I think, is interop, or almost kind of this like stablecoin clearing type product, right? Where it's this back end infrastructure that allows interoperability, not at the user level, not even at the business level, but more at the infrastructure level. Kind of the same way we have ACH, right? Like technically $1 in my Bank of America account is a different dollar than the dollar sitting in my JPM account. And that's because those are two different dollars sitting in two different databases, right? Are they the same dollar? Sure. But technically they live in completely different environments, and they have pre-built connections between those environments. But without those pre-built connections, those are completely siloed, fragmented ecosystems. But then ACH comes out, then wire transfers come out. Well, in reverse order, obviously, but like then ACH is the connective tissue between this stuff, or even Venmo becomes connective tissue, cards become connective tissue, more connective tissue gets out between these accounts, fragmentation, liquidity, whatever, doesn't become that much of a problem anymore. And I think that that is something that we'll see, let's say over the next like 18, 36 months, where it's like you aren't focusing on like ramping anymore. You're just focused on creating like clearing between all the different types of stable coins. There's like interoperability and a great UX between all those stable coins, and all that's abstracted like 3, 4, 5 layers behind the stack. So the user doesn't see it or feel it or anything like that.
I think you're spot on. So I like what you said, because it's not a choice of like this chain versus that chain, right? It's more of, as long as there's good interoperability between the various chains that solves for this liquidity issue that we kind of see today between the various chains. And so I think what you're saying is like basically every chain has its own reason to exist, and these bespoke chains will serve a particular purpose. And they're not really competing. It's going to look like competition up front, but over time, I think the most common thing that we'll see is assets moving between these chains, just like they do from my Venmo to my PayPal, or from my PayPal to my bank account.
I think bridges and interop solutions and whatever are yet to come and become quite a bit more popular. Like bridging is incredibly immature today, if you ask me.
100% agree.
Like,
Yeah, 100%. And it's so
is horrible.
complex. It's so complex, right? Like there's the messaging side of it, there's the asset movement side of it. There's some that like wormhole entities, like a good example, right? They do like this native token transfer, but then that's very different than how Allbridge or somebody comes from that same perspective. Like it's and I think for anybody that's not deep into the tech side of it, it's kind of hard to understand like what exactly is happening here versus with another interoperability provider. So I completely agree with you on that.
It's almost like you need to aggregate the interoperability company, because they're all actually interoperable within sort of a walled garden of 4 or 5 sort of systems that they work with. And these guys are good for another 5 systems. And, Chainlink has CCIP, Wormhole has this, Axelar has those guys, the Layer Zero guys have their stuff. Everyone's there, but they service slightly different things in slightly different ways. And then actually, I wanted to bring it back to like, how do you think about the approach of people like MZero, where they're trying to say, hey, just build on let's aggregate liquidity under the banner of MZero, rather than sort of be your own stablecoin, be part of the stablecoin network? Like, how does that fit in? And actually, then I had a TradFi question for you guys, which was, in the US, payments have been sort of slow, and that's where there's been this evolution. But then what about things like FedNow? Like, is that a realistic competitor to some of the stablecoin products, at least in the States, or is that just a nice to have?
So on MZero, I think that that's an incredible product, just like I think Stripe is an incredible product for the medium to long tail of customers that's underserved and whatever, but it's not enterprise ready, right? Just like Stripe isn't like the enterprise choice. So MZero I think is great. I think it's just a piece of the overall puzzle. I think it's just another ecosystem built on dozens of other ecosystems, but it's still not the complete picture. But I think they are consolidating. I think that's like, I think like what we're talking about is like what's going to happen at this top layer. We're currently at this bottom layer. MZero is kind of in this like middle layer, still solving some of these problems, but just not like at the scale that like solves the whole picture, right? And I think that, yeah, I don't know, maybe it's M1, M2, or M3, whatever is like the layer on top of that like is the next one. But there's going to be more aggregation on top of that. Like just, Wise point on the different chain interop solutions too. Like same thing. They're finding their own niches, whether it's because that's what they're building towards, or that's what they want to do, or whatever it is, that's where they're seeing traction. But like, yeah, where's the interop solution for the interop solutions, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I think like we're just early. I think this is like a new wave that's going to come out. I think like we're still in this like stablecoin payments wave. I think we started with ramps. I think now wallet tech is getting mature, and this is going to round out this like stablecoin chapter of the crypto book that we're all writing. And then the next chapter is going to be shit. We launched 5,000 stablecoins. What do we do? Like, we have a problem.
100%. Yeah. And that's where I
Yeah.
think Aisha's point around like the clearing piece of it, like, is huge, right? Like, I think having, you know, we cannot be dependent on any solution that is token bound from some perspective. Like, it needs to be really function bound, right? Like, hey, you choose what you want to use, and then we'll figure out the easiest way for you to continue to use it and give you the interoperability to whatever needs to happen on the back end. I think you guys are spot on from that perspective. I want to kind of take us in a different route. Like, we've talked about use cases a little bit. One of the best use cases that I'm always super excited about is Polymarket, which everybody kind of knows about. But you guys were first to market with them. Like, they're really tight with Polygon from that perspective. Can you guys talk a little bit more about how do you see that vertical in that space kind of growing?
I think it's gonna grow like even more because like I think Polymarket earlier was not even like there in the US market. They just got approval to launch in the US market back then. Like after getting the license, then like I think what we're also doing is we're trying to get them into other markets as well globally. So like I think so that would kind of go out and grow that market even more. And right now, like they already like have like the number one mind share in the overall space, and like they're doing really good in that. The volumes are like essentially on Polygon, like we see a lot of that volume coming in. So that is anyways kind of like anyways coming like and making a lot of traction for
Mm-hmm.
Polymarket. And I think that effectively will go out and increase even more as more and more markets start accepting it, and like they're getting more and more integrated. I think they got integrated in Grok as well. So like if you're trying to go out and find something, Grok will show you like a Polymarket chart. So like slowly and steadily, that is where like I think so Polymarket effectively is one of the biggest like use case, which is like which a normal person is using without like realizing that all those rails are effectively running on the blockchain itself. So I think it's only going higher from like the total user base because the number of people are increasing. Coming back to US gets them more traction, more volumes, and I think that's where they're going, like more volume, more traction, more user base.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And all these use cases, I mean, ultimately it's speed, throughput, right? Like, that's really what if you look at the Visa and MasterCards of the world today, that's kind of where they win, right? It's so fast. And like, so maybe a quick segue into Rio, the upgrade that you guys just did with Polygon. Maybe Jamal, walk us through what that brings to the Polygon ecosystem as a whole, how that's going to be, really advantageous to better adoption.
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest thing when you look at like the upgrades on the chain, like one of the things we have seen is like always hearing from the TradFi world that like blockchains are not scaled enough to be able to go out and hold like the number of transactions that we can do on the chain. And like I think two partnerships that we did last year are like one is with an operating system that is effectively embedding the entire financial, like you go out and make a payment, it is on the blockchain itself. You can invest, have a saving bank account into the phone, like, into the mobile itself. So and they're like the in circulation right now there are around 120 million plus customers.
Mm,
Plus like then there was another company where we significantly kind of worked with them to launch like an entire product suite of a stablecoin segment, which is like sitting with like 9 to 10 million users and is
amazing.
to come on chain. So with that, like I think that was a thought process that effectively when we used to talk to the tech team, they were like, okay, bring us demand and like we will scale. So we said, okay, here is the demand. This is what is coming in. And that is why we should kind of start going out and looking into scaling. So I think earlier this year, we did like one of the upgrades, which was 2 months back, which brought our TPS to around 1,000 transactions per second. And now what we're doing with the Rio upgrade is effectively, so one of the biggest challenges, like when you are going out and competing with chains running on single sequencer, is that through the single sequencer, not only they're accruing like revenue completely to themselves and not the validators, they're also, because like they're a centralized system or a centralized hub, they are able to perform much better. So you have to
Okay.
kind of in order for us to kind of go out and ensure that we're still winning, we have to go out and upgrade tech in a way where we're at par or competing with them or are better with them. So that's where Rio comes in. So effectively, the way today what happens is when you do a transaction, it goes to a mempool. From the mempool, a validator picks up, creates a block, and then the block is disbursed into the validator set, and a validator picks up. Like whoever is at that point of time selected picks up the block, and then the whole validation happens. With the Rio upgrade, what we're doing is we are kind of going into a system where, just like Ethereum, like if you look at Ethereum, there are two block producers which produce 99% of the entire blocks of Ethereum, and then the other validators validate it. So we are like just adopting the same mechanism where effectively what you can do is like there would be say like 2 or 3 validators who would be doing all the heavy lifting of like producing the block rather than the entire network, reducing the latency of like block production. And then the validators effectively are going out and validating the blocks and putting it for finality, which even in a decentralized world today, we probably would be the only chain who can give you a pre-conf at like 250 milliseconds and like still kind of be like with 103 validators be decentralized. So all the other chains where effectively they're just running from a single sequencer, that's pretty easy. Like you are running the server in your own home or like wherever you want, and then you're getting the speed and you're getting that finality. But like Rio enables us to kind of achieve that. And once you have that, effectively what happens, it pushes us to get like more TPS, which is like somewhere where we're targeting to reach. I think mostly we'll be around 5,000 transactions per second by end of this year. So that is like we just pushed it out in the test net. We'll run it for like 2-3 months, see how the performance is going in, and then like upgrade it to the mainnet.
That's amazing. No, I think these transactions per second, or TPS as you kind of referred to, is so key, right? Like especially when we get to like real stablecoin payments use cases. Not to boast, but like Algorand has been at 10,000 TPS for a while now, as well. So welcome to the faster TPS world, Jamal, Aishwary.
Can't believe you throw that in, Luther. That's so rude.
I mean, we're friends, right? Like, yeah.
Hopeless show, yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, you guys just got to
It's the first and last time we're on. I can't believe it.
So cute.
But it raised a good point though, guys. Like in terms of having that TPS capability is fantastic. But
Absolutely.
to our earlier point, we were talking about why these stablecoin specific chains starting to be built, and their argument is generally because we don't want the chain itself that we're doing the stablecoin transactions on to be hampered by non-stablecoin related activity. So if someone launches a meme coin or someone launches something else, the argument is that these guys, it's focused, it's reliable finality, payments need reliable finality.
But
what's the counterpoint?
That's kind of moot, because if your chain is like public chain, how will you stop a meme coin from launching? Like that's just going out and saying here is an open field, but only 3 people can enter it, but the field is open. And if there are 1,000 people there, like how will you hold that? So I love that like argument a lot. Like a lot of people do that, but like I don't find like too much substance on that one, because effectively like if unless you say you're a closed chain, you're a private chain, yeah, sure, you can restrict everyone to come into it and do it. Like if you remember, like I think this chain that got launched, like I think in Japan, there was this chain which said like we will only kind of go out and do IP like Sony chain, like that Sony M chain. And like day one, people like made so many like meme coins, like so many, like day one they violated like 1,000 IP rights on just day one by launching meme coins. So you cannot stop that. So I mean, like that is a fair argument. Like people want like a dedicated space, but I don't think so unless you're running a private chain for sure.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think, you're right. I mean, if you look at, the thing is it Plasma? There's Codex. Who else is there's One Money. There's like a few of them that have all come on with different projects. But you're right. There needs to be a gating aspect to it. Like if you're not issuing stablecoin, then you're a database. Yeah. Interesting.
I just wanted to get your thoughts on what is coming next in the Polygon world. What is some advice you guys have for traditional Web2 companies, right? Traditional companies that are still in the traditional finance space that are starting to look at stablecoins? Maybe some like parting thoughts from that side. Jamal?
Um, so if you are just starting to look at stablecoins, hurry up. I think you're behind the curve. I think that's probably what I'd say. Hopefully, you've been looking into it throughout this year, and I think that doesn't necessarily mean you need to do anything. That doesn't necessarily mean you need to build something. In fact, I think it's good to take your time and build and wait slowly. But it does mean that you need to develop a strategy. It's kind of like beyond that point at this point. So, yeah, I think that like I'm excited to see who's going to develop what. I would say from like I've seen, Aish and I talk to a lot of enterprises. I'm sure you guys do as well. Um, there's just too much rushing to market and therefore like unhealthy solutions that are not scalable, not like solutions oriented, or not really like pushing forward a good use case or a good narrative within the space. And I think that like instead of just like launching something just to get something out, I think it makes sense to wait. And this is the long game. Like financial services is an incredibly long game, right? Like the first card was released in 1966 and eventually like that became the dominant form of payment. But like, how many years did that take? Over 50, probably. My mom is still writing checks, like, so I think that like financial services integrations and adoptions will take time. So I don't think that we're like past the saturation point by any means, but it is past the point where it's like this is real, this is going to stay. The regulation is backing it, even the governments are backing it, right? And at that point in time, like what is your strategy? How do you carve out your space and how do you do it in a way that's healthy and not just like going to chase the taglines? Or launch something that's crazy just to like, do something for a year or two. How are you building the next like stable financial infrastructure? um, I think getting in touch with experts is the best thing to do, right? Like, I think that these guys have brilliant, like, large enterprises obviously naturally have brilliant folks and talented engineers and talented business folks or whatever. But there's a reason why it took all of us like 8 years to become experts in our space. And now we're starting to see that to come to fruition. So like anyway, I would just recommend like do the thought exercise, think things through deeply, think things through on the fundamental level instead of like what is the highest return or what did Stripe do or what did whatever do, right? And then I think from there, like you will build something that's truly sustainable and truly powerful. And it will roll out to being super, super successful 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. And that's great. That's how it should be.
Yeah, no, you're spot
Right.
on. And that's actually what we set out to build with Stablecoin Partners is that like bespoke set of experts that can help a financial institution or somebody who's in the Web2 space. But Aishwary, what are your thoughts from a global perspective?
Yeah, I think like I echo what Jamal just said. Like effectively, like all these guys, you need to kind of go out and get into conversations with people who have actually been doing that for a lot of time. And I think that is one of the best ways. Like I think this is something where a lot of people anyways are like, if you're looking at a lot of financial institutions and banks, they are relying on a lot of advice from like a lot of blockchains such as ourselves. But effectively, like I think doing it yourself like probably would, or like doing it, I think this is one advice that I always say: you trying to go out and have something with like just like going. So this is like two strategies that a lot of people do. One is they day one they're like, we are happy to go into an exclusivity if you give us this liquidity and all those things. And I love that whole like kind of dumbbell, which is like you can go out and do that. But the problem after that is, and this is something I've like we are seeing from a lot of people who have done these deals, they often like come back and say that, guys, like, yeah, we ruined our business because like I'm quoting a lot of banks actually here, where basically they have gone into exclusive deals, they've just deployed 10 million or 20 million liquidity into their applications, and then like that is still 20 million because after getting that liquidity from like multiple blockchains, nobody knows what to do next, even the blockchain sometimes. So you don't actually know what to do it, and at the end of 1 year you're like, oh, blockchains are useless and we should shut them down because like my AUM did not grow. But I don't think that's the problem of the blockchain. It's more of the problem of like what you wanted to do, but you're not doing it because you thought, okay, getting $10, $20 million, $50 million in exclusive liquidity is going to grow you. So I think that is one strategy that a lot of people are actually going out and taking. And the other is like where they're like, okay, can you help us grow this overall AUM? Do you know where basically we can kind of go out and see the use cases? And that is, I think, where we are already seeing a lot of success because like a global team like us, such as ourselves at Polygon, what we are doing is everyone is at different like places. So we have 14 people across the world in different jurisdictions, which are like all the major ones. And we can generate that business. We can help you generate that revenue. We can help you generate that volume, cross-border functions, and everything like that. But like, yeah, that is that is like the second approach. I mean, like a lot of blockchains are giving that for sure, and I think that is the right one. So, like, the best way is kind of talk to other blockchains, see like what the strategy is, and like not just be fixated towards okay, we'll get the liquidity because like you have to overall grow the business because otherwise like you'll come next year and you'll be like, okay, this blockchain thing does not work. We should shut it down and like move back to a traditional beans.
Yeah, you're spot on. Spot on. And it's funny because you mentioned that because that is one thing that even at Algorand we're very careful about is just getting TVL for the sake of TVL. Like that doesn't make any sense at all, right? Like ultimately, if that TVL doesn't have volume or some use case that will generate the volume, it is stuck. It is literally stuck liquidity. Like it's like a pre-fund in the traditional financial services.
Exactly.
Right?
It's like you're pre-funding your accounts. That's it.
Exactly. No, it's awesome. Well, Aishwary, Jamal, thank you so much for joining us and sharing all your insights about Polygon and stablecoins as a whole. It was a pleasure having you guys. Look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode or on an episode here in the near future. And for those of you listening, if you've enjoyed today's conversation, make sure you check out our previous episodes with leaders like Edward Woodford from Zero Hash, Samson Leo from StraightSex, and Raj Parekh from Monad. Each brings a different perspective on how stablecoins are reshaping payments and financial infrastructure. And please like and follow for future episodes.